Welcome to More Than a Parent, a podcast exploring who we are and what we want outside of being a parent, so we can create an integrated lifestyle with impact both in and out of our homes. I'm Kaz Gaddis, and I invite you to join me to be your more, live your and. Hi, I'm Kaz. Welcome to another episode of More Than a Parent. With us today, we're going to have Amanda Kaufman. She's a good friend of mine, and we connected really well as we went through a coach training program together. She also served as my coach on productivity right around the time I figured out that we were pregnant with our first kid. So talk about productivity, right? So a little bit about Amanda. She is an executive coach, speaker, wife, mother, productivity and performance nerd, she really is, and an advocate for you crushing it in your own life. Prior to formally launching her coaching practice, Amanda spent a decade as a strategist, a mentor, and a leader traveling all over North America to serve her high-profile clients, all while raising a young family and pursuing several personal goals at the same time. So again, expert in productivity and high performance coaching, which is why we're having her on today. Amanda offers a range of performance coaching consulting services, from individual coaching to workshops, keynote speeches on the subject of performance effectiveness, leadership, and balance. So on this episode, we're going to talk about performance. We're going to talk about productivity. She's going to share with us a really cool freebie that is going to help us being able to just, like that next step, that next best thing for us to do when it comes to boosting our performance, whether you're a stay-at-home parent, whether you are in your career, if you're launching a business or a cause, or again, just wanting to get more out of each day, each week. This is going to be a really great episode for you to learn a little bit about her, and also what things that you can start putting into play, what you can learn about her process to be able to support you and your family and the impact you're making both in and out of your home. Without further ado, here's Amanda. So tell us a little bit about your parenting journey, especially with the way that you guys have like a blended family. How was that for you?
So I fell in love with my husband in Canada. We were both consultants on a project at the time. And I decided to move to Texas to be closer to my new stepkids and his ex-wife. And that was like kind of chapter one, was move to a brand new country and have these already growing up babies, and try to navigate the whole stepmom role. Do you know there's like 200 fictional stories about stepmothers that feature them as the villain? Did you know that?
200?
200.
I can only think of Cinderella right now, but like, okay, wow, that's
There's
a lot.
like,
There's a lot of messaging there.
A lot of messaging that the stepmother is evil.
Yeah.
So obviously I didn't want to be evil. And the thing is my husband's ex is actually a very lovely person. We get along famously. They're just not married anymore. And so that was also kind of an interesting dynamic, because there's also kind of that expectation that there's going to be a lot of hatred and drama and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And, I had no interest in replacing the kid's mom, because she's pretty great. She makes like those, I remember she did like the sandwich for the kids one day, and it was like super intricate. It was like cookie cutters were involved and stuff like that. And I was like, whoa, that's next level.
That's next.
Right?
I was just about to say, that's next level.
That's next level momming. And it's like, that's such a important, powerful, amazing relationship that, I didn't want to, I had no interest in replacing, but I was going to be there. And I also didn't really want to do the evil stepmother thing. So I had to figure out what that role would be like. And I got there eventually, of like what a stepmother to me means, and therefore what that means to our family. So, and we did that for a few years. I want to say 3 or 4 actually, before our first came along, between us. So that's my third for those keeping track. And then Um, 4 years after that came along Braxton. So,
Yeah.
we have the oldest is a girl,
Full house.
and then then we got 3 boys, and it's a very interesting time right now because she's 13.
Mm,
Seems to be handling it pretty gracefully. My mom assures me that she's gonna rear some kind of an ugly front soon, and I'm like, I don't know. She's been
yeah.
pretty sweet so far, and the 11-year-old seems to be squarely dealing with something I really didn't expect to have to face until he was like 15 or so. It's like just like the teen tantrum stage, I guess you could say.
Mm.
And so that's really exciting. I'm really, really looking forward to dealing with that. Then we've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah. So you have, it's interesting too, because it's like all the stages. It's all the different stages at once that
Yes,
you're
we don't
having.
have an infant at the moment, which is nice.
Right. But you did at some point, about a year
Very
and a half,
recently.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, at one point, actually, you and I, so for those of you tuning in, whether you're listening or watching the vidcast, Ashley, that's funny. Amanda and I, actually, is what I meant to say, went through one of our coaching programs, our certification, about a 6 to 7 month program. Took me a lot longer to finish it up, but we were both pregnant at the same time. So with one of the kiddos. So yeah, that's awesome.
So cool.
Yeah. So with that, the different, I guess, what would you tell someone on how you are showing up? And I guess meeting those different levels of where they are while you're also doing and being who it is that you are.
Yeah, like finding your identity and all of that. I think with each of them, one of the things that I just love about kids is they're all so different. Like their
Mm,
personalities are different, and the way that they approach each age is pretty different. There's similarities for sure, but they're all very different little people, and younger people. And so what I try to do as a parent is do my best to empower them to make decisions that are going to last well into their future.
mm-hmm.
Right. So being able to exercise some self control in situations, but also have enjoyment and joy. And, you know, in terms of parenting style, we try to really manage like screen time, and
Mm-hmm.
we love having meals as a family, and we love cooking together. And like there's a ton of connection that we really prioritize
Yeah.
in the family. And at the same time, it's really important that mom and dad are A-OK. And one is with each other, but I think also independently of that is on our own. Like
Mm-hmm.
that we have our own thing and our own dreams and contributions, and that we're able to contribute far beyond the walls of the household,
Yeah.
you know? So that's how I look at it. And I know a lot of people have lots of very strong opinions about what matters. But I also came from a family that kind of has a long standing of female entrepreneurs,
Mm.
actually, which
That's
is
a really cool
weird.
thing to have, though, the example too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it normalized some of the things that I know can be a really strong stigma about what a woman should or shouldn't do with her
Mm.
whole entire life. And then, in the business that I've created, I help a lot of people build an entrepreneurial venture, because I happen to just love nerding out about business, and I just think
Yeah,
that
you do.
I like business. Um, and the thing is that I also work with a lot of women who, they're in this new chapter and they've decided that they, are done, they're empty nesting and they want that next chapter and defining that out. So I think there's a lot of ways to kind of claim that identity. But I think at the end of the day, whether you do it now, whether you do it later, what I've observed is most women really want to have that connection to contribution that is
Yeah.
bigger than self and bigger than the family. And I think that's super important to honor that.
Totally. And so with the kids, especially as you're going off and doing that, and I know you and I, before we officially started the podcast, we were talking about like mom shaming and how that comes into play. And also like your own experience in kind of with the family and mixing with the career and what you decided to do.
Yeah.
Did you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. I started my career, my paid career, I guess you could say, as the consultant, which basically translated to traveling 46 weeks a year.
Yeah.
And so that's a bit of an endeavor, like to manage
Yeah.
that kind of travel schedule. And it meant that I kind of had this Batman Bruce Wayne thing going on at home where I'm not sure which character was which, but there was one character that came out Monday through Thursday at the client site, and there was another character that came out that was like, Friday, 5 o'clock, boom, I switch roles, and it's like a complete identity shift. And now
Mm,
I'm super domestic and kind of working in all the family time and all the family focus, and like even try to email me, like you can't.
mm,
But then Monday flips around and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm on it again. And that was kind of the rhythm and routine that I had established as a parent. But I remember when I very first got married, it was like everything was fine in my career. And then I got married, and it's like the day I got onto the project site, after the wedding, it was like, so you gonna have kids? And I was like, what? It's like,
ah,
yeah, yeah, I think so. And it's like, okay. And it led to like all these conversations about, I
mm.
think it's really impressive that you work your job. I think it's really, amazing that you're doing that. Or like, gosh, what do you do with your kids? And I'm like, I leave them at home with a bowl of water, like, what do you do?
With the automatic bowls that like continue to fill.
Exactly, like cats. You can get them at PetSmart. Um,
I did contemplate
obviously,
that before having kids. I'm like, yeah, self-sufficient. I mean,
right, just plenty of sunshine, it'll be fine. So obviously I make sure that I have excellent childcare.
totally.
Obviously I'm taking care of my
Yeah.
kiddos, and I love them very much, and I'm very connected with them, and I talk to them multiple times a day while traveling, and even when I'm not traveling, all the
Yeah.
time. But it was really interesting just how differently I was received by being a mother in the workplace. And I was like, do you ask the
Mm,
dads this? Like, do
yeah.
you ask him about his childcare arrangements? Pretty sure you don't,
Yeah.
right? And that's tricky too, because if you have a kind of a curt response to it, it's like, well, you're being defensive. And it's like, oh, just stop. So what ended up happening in my professional career is I would either not bring up the fact that I had kids because I was exhausted of having to explain it,
Mm,
or I would have to choose to step up to having that conversation and educating the person who is completely flabbergasted. Uh,
yeah.
it was, and then there were people that didn't care. Like honestly, like the people that were on my project and like
Hmm.
close to me and my boss and everything like that, they didn't. It's not that they didn't care. That sounds kind of cold. But like it literally did not make a big difference to their
Right.
day, because they were like, yeah, it's Amanda. I mean,
Yeah.
here she is. It was usually people that would be like, whoa, you've been doing this for so long. Like, whoa. And when
Hmm.
I became an entrepreneur, which allowed me a lot more flexibility, allowed me a lot more autonomy and, design. Like I said, I love business. So being able to
Hmm.
create a business that supported my goals as a parent and as a person, to work on my health and, have more control. I still travel a lot, but it's not 46 weeks a year.
Yeah. And it's on your
Um,
own. You're creating the schedule. It's different. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't feel like I have to go to a client. I get to go to some clients. I get to go to some events, and that's really cool. But I choose which ones make sense, and I
Hmm.
choose not to do the ones that I'm like, doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. Um, but even as an entrepreneur, like I'll go to an entrepreneurial event, and the idle chit chat and all this kind of thing, and it's like, wait, whoa, you have kids?
Mm,
And I'm like, yes, yes. And do you? Yes, yes, I do. Right. And I think what's really interesting is, especially in the entrepreneurial circles, wanting to give yourself permission to be able to like go big with your business and not feel like it has to be like this little tiny side hustle thing, but
totally.
something you're really excited and passionate about. There's like this weird permission dynamic I've
Yeah.
noticed, that it's like, oh, you give yourself permission to do that? Good for you. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, but you could too if you wanted to, though. Like you could,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't talk about this a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't I don't talk at all. I haven't really had conversations like this, honestly, until I became a parent, and then more so now as I started setting up for the podcast. And just we just don't normally ask each other that, or it just doesn't come up or whatnot. But it's interesting because like the networking events too, I noticed, so this was really funny. So my my newest member, he is currently 6 weeks old, and I decided at he was, I think, 5 days old. There was this event that I wanted to go to, this business event, and kind of more, really it was actually like a dancing thing where with Ashley actually,
Oh,
and it
cool.
was like, yeah, and it was just a place to be able to be who you are and just like, connect and all that. So anyway, so I decided to go to that, and on the way there, it was like right in the middle of Oktoberfest here locally in McKinney. And so anyway, so I'm on the bus, and somehow I talked to this family who had 2 young kids, and I was just asking about their ages because it seemed to be about a year or two apart, and just wanted to get their insight. And I was like, oh, yeah, I just had a baby. And some other gentleman that was on the bus, on the shuttle, listened to that. And he's like, well, why are you here? Because he heard that it was 5 years or 5 days old. And I'm just like, I'm escaping. And I just said that just to get his reaction, and he was flabbergasted. And he didn't talk to me the rest of the, like, the couple more minutes that we were on the shuttle. But
It's like awkward.
yeah, but it's kind of like, even though that was a funny situation in networking and in business and whatever, there's like the mom shaming, or like, why are you here then? Well, why aren't you asking that to like my husband, or what, like that standard type of thing, or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. You can tell like there's that pattern disrupt, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, wait a second, you're not following my expected pattern. And I think, sometimes I love how you responded with humor. That's great. Um, and I think like one of the things I've had to work on as a
Mm,
person is just being patient for that, and being patient for like, maybe it's not necessarily a judgment mom shaming thing. Maybe
mm-hmm.
it's just flat ignorance, of
Right.
just not knowing that there's other ways to like be.
Yeah.
But I get pretty fired up about the topic because I think what I hear a lot of times, and again, maybe this is like judgment on my part, right?
Yeah.
Is I hear almost like the background noise talk of like, oh, you could do this, but I can't.
Mm,
And as a coach, that fires me up. I'm just
yeah.
like, what are you even talking about?
Mm,
You have so much power, you have so much capacity, and you're telling me that because you had kids, you can't? Like, that's
yeah.
awful, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, and so as a high performance coach, executive coach, and all the things that you are, I know we're going to talk a little bit about high performance, and you have a really cool freebie for those listening in. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. You can introduce that. But when it comes to integrating, which to me, I don't know how you feel, you tell me. I think that it's so much more beyond balance. I kind of think like balance is this nice little fairy tale. But
Balance is crap. I
yeah.
will just like totally affirm that right
Balance is crap, period. But yeah, I don't believe in balance either. I believe that there's this integration piece. And so I'm just wondering what integration have you figured out for you, that could also possibly help somebody tuning in to this conversation on all the things and integrating, so that you can still be your more, you can live your end, whatever that is, whether it's a entrepreneurial venture or just your everyday. Yeah, what's onto you, Amanda.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so here's the first thing, right? Is that integration looks different for everyone
Right.
because your priorities are different and your values are different. And so I think maybe hire a coach to talk to you about, well, discover what are your values, and what are the values that you have that are fear-based, and what are
Right.
the values that you have that you're choosing, right? Because the fear-based values can be a powerful driver in our lives and can cause us to prioritize and do things unconsciously that, if we had the power of our consciousness and our clarity about what was driving us, we might
Hmm.
choose something different.
Yeah.
So for example, if you're kind of like dabbling in business, but you're not really letting yourself do it, there's a good chance you've got competing values going on there. And so then what can happen is because you're not getting results in that little side hustle or that thing that you're doing, often, again, because we're in like an unconscious kind of a state, we look at the results aren't what we want them to be. And then we start taking on meaning of like, what does that say about us? What does that say about my identity? What does that say about who I am? Oh, I guess I'm not good at business. I guess I'm not good at this. I guess I better give up. But then you've got that pull on your heart to do the thing. So then there's like this yo-yo vacillation. And so I'd say like the first thing is find a coach who will talk to you. And most coaches will do a session for free. And just to give you a sense of feeling about that. If you say like, hey, could you do like I heard about this values assessment thing. Could you like help me with that? Cause I'm trying to find my priorities. That's really the first step is if you know, like your priorities are, I'm clear. Like my priorities are happy Manda, happy, healthy Manda, right? Cause if I'm not good, like just pray for everybody else. Cause it's just not going to be good. Right.
Yeah.
Next priority is Chris. Super crystal clear on that.
Get it, crystal clear.
Chris, my husband.
I know, but do you get it though, Crystal? Chris, like his name. Okay, go ahead.
I didn't get it. So that's okay.
I was just saying like Crystal, but it's his name. You're crystal clear, Chris.
Oh yeah, okay. I get it now. Okay, I'm sorry. That was a little slow for me.
No, you're good. It was just extremely corny for me as well. So it just
that was new level. Congratulations. That was really good.
You're welcome. So back to you. So Chris, your priority after. Yeah.
So Chris is the second in line. Then come the kids.
Yeah.
Right? Then comes everybody else and the career and all of that. And I use the career as a device to reach other people.
Yeah. Just to pause you right there too. That's another thing that we believe in as well in our house. And I think it's so important, like the you first, right? And then your spouse and then the kids. Because if you and your spouse are good, then the kids are going to automatically be good and they're going to see that example.
Yes.
So yeah, I love that you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's foundational to how Chris and I have chosen to set up our whole thing. Right. And I would say as well, like if you're wanting to integrate a lot into your life, the first thing is you have to know what's really important to you and try not to put everything being fear-based, right? That's what I'm saying. Like the values is so important of what's important to you. And I think it's super especially important for us ladies because we're often raised with the societal norms and expectations that we got to take care of community and everybody else. And then defer. And I think there's a lot of fear that if we don't do that, if we don't take care of everybody else, that we're failing as a human. And that's like not cool. That's not cool. And it's not true.
Right.
The truth is that when you are a happy, fulfilled human being, you are going to give so far and beyond your immediate community.
Yeah. I was stuck in that same cycle for like years. Literally, I'm in the path of getting out of that. Also recovering perfectionist, but with being a nurturer naturally, nurture. Yeah, as a woman, and then the cultural piece may come into play or whatever with that. And then, you put your stuff on the back of the stove or however that cliche.
Yeah. You're on the back burner.
That.
Yeah.
I'm like the stove with the pots. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And you get the leftovers. And I think like that leftover thinking, it is our default programming for the most part. And like, even for me, right. I have to be super mindful, even in my coaching business. I was just saying to one of my clients earlier today that, when you resonate with a lot of caregiver energy, the tendency is to make sure everybody else is good. And then you crawl into bed and just like hope that you get enough sleep. And then you get up super early and take care of everybody again.
Yeah. And so what do you do for that? Like if you are one of those people, and you're just like, you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh my gosh, they have a camera in my house.
Yeah. Right.
And we don't, by the way, we're not, that creepy, but yeah. Like what would you do, if you were in that situation besides a values piece?
So I think the values is super important. I think the first thing, and this connects with the freebie that I want to give you guys, is institute a weekly review practice. And I'm not saying like change your whole schedule around like immediately. I'm not going to give you a big prescriptive, like, here's all the productivity hacks,
Mm,
because what I found is that's completely overwhelming
yeah.
and it doesn't necessarily help, right? The first thing we need to do is get into a habit of just taking a beat and looking over our past week. Big
Yeah.
fan of like using a calendar. So look over your calendar and just reflect, like, what happened
Yeah.
and how did you feel about that? And a scale of 1 to 10, how well did you sleep? How well did you hydrate? How well did you take, some time to meditate? Meditation as a practice. I'm not like a really good like kind of a meditator,
Yeah.
but you can do these 2-minute transition meditations. So every time I get into my car,
Mm,
before I go into the next thing, I take a beat, and usually that beat is anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And it's just releasing whatever tension that I just brought with me there and setting
mm,
a new intention for when I cross the threshold of the door of the next place.
yeah.
So it's kind of a get my stuff together, a little bit of a routine that helps me with those transitions. And it's like those little micro moments that you can give yourself. But I'd say the big macro moment is take that week to do that reflection and
Mm,
then set an intention for the rest of the week.
yeah.
Right. And weekly planning is not sexy, you guys. It's kind of
Yeah.
painful, especially if you've never done it before. So I would say, like, instead of setting the bar for perfection to be at like 1,000,000%, which is another thing we ladies tend to suffer from, is everything has to be perfect before we do it.
Mm,
I very intentionally would love to see you lower that freaking bar. Like, make it so stinking easy to follow through on that, and then give yourself the gift of follow through,
mm.
because it's the follow through that leads to the momentum. It's the momentum that leads to the change. And so if you just like come blasting out January 1st with like, I'm going to go to the gym 17 days a week
Oh,
and, I'm going to be like, rah, right?
yeah.
we, we
Amazonian yells. Yeah.
we tend to flame out, and then we kind of like, oh, who am I kidding? And then we kind of retreat back to the
Yeah.
old norms. So the first thing I would say is that weekly review. And ideally, we want to work our way up to a full hour of this gift. But for now, give yourself 15 minutes.
That's great. And just work it up, build it up from there as you need to. I think one thing that's really important. So I've actually been coached by Amanda. It literally was right before we found out that we were pregnant. And then I had this like, oh Jesus moment with all the things coming at me with that. But for me, the biggest thing with doing that, I still do it to this day. It's the awareness too. I feel like there's a level of self-compassion as you review and as you plan. And I'm figuring out that next cadence of that next level cadence for me right now as well. But the
Yeah.
awareness just of what you sought out to accomplish versus what actually was accomplished, and then kind of pivoting or adjusting from there. So again, it's not just like what did you actually do or whatnot. It's really like, well, how did that feel, or what did that look like, or did not look like, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what did you learn? And I think another big piece of this is if you're feeling really stuck, the odds are good that you're probably experiencing what we call a fixed mindset.
Mm,
And a fixed mindset is when you believe that your circumstances are never going to change and there's nothing you can do about it. And so what I love about this weekly review process is, like, in the PDF that I'll give you, there's actually a question of like, what did I learn and what am I grateful for? And what I'm doing there is I'm like kind of sneaking in a little bit of growth mindset, right? And the
yeah.
growth mindset is the belief that you can figure things out and that things can change. And um, they've actually done a lot of research in recent years that show neuroplasticity. Your brain can literally change over time if you choose to cultivate new thought patterns. So if you're feeling like you're really trapped, if you're feeling like you're in this, like, I don't know, Groundhog Day, kind of like day in, day out, this is all there is,
Yeah.
do this weekly review, okay? And like look for those lessons and look for those gratitudes. And that's going to be like that first step forward.
I love that. And it makes such a difference. Like even just doing the review versus like the things, it makes you feel like that cadence, that consistency is definitely moving you forward. So that's awesome. Um, so when you had when you were in the newborn and toddler stages with the kiddos, for example, what did I guess what did performance, productivity, and all that kind of stuff look like when you were in that area? Does that make
Yeah, it makes
like
so
does that
much
make sense?
sense. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, when Alden was born, like newborn, it looked like survival,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It looked like combat. Like, I don't even know what the heck that was. That it was exhausting.
Yeah.
It
I'm living
was,
it.
yeah,
I'm like,
no,
yes, it is.
I'll tell you how I crushed my productivity. I was breastfeeding. I watched like all the New Girl seasons on Netflix, like every single one.
I love New Girl. Yeah.
They were perfect, right? Because they were like
Yeah.
22 minutes long each, and it was like, yeah, it was ideal. So joking aside, I think like so much is uncertain with your first, and you don't
Mhm.
know what to expect, and you don't know if you're going to be a good mom, and like all the, society aside, I feel like we just totally dump so much on ourselves about our not enoughness and how we're not good enough, and how could they possibly trust me to bring home this little treasure, and 2 minutes later it's like, oh my gosh, it's so much work.
Yeah.
um and so it was like a lot of emotions and a lot of like, I think the one thing that I would now, I'm careful when I talk to like a newly pregnant lady
Mhm. Is it
that's never
because you
had a
learned
kid.
from me?
Well, I'm super careful because I'm just like, you know,
Yeah.
everybody's giving you a bunch of advice, and it's just like it's going to be different than you think. That's the
Mm.
only thing I can really tell you. It's going to be different than you think, and everybody's
Yeah.
going to tell you what it's going to be like, and you're going to be like, it's not like that,
Yeah.
right? Because it's going to be.
Totally. Yeah, well, and I think it depends on the kid too, because like
Mhm.
first kid, I did not want to even touch. I had my business more to the side, and I had my career full time, and I didn't want to touch anything. I just wanted to be present, and I was very protective of that time.
Yeah.
And this time around, I'm like, obviously, like the podcast came out during, like he was 17 days old, and so it's just much more of a creation feeling. It's nothing forced. It's just the energy that I have.
With
Um,
number 2, I
yeah.
will
Okay,
share,
please. Yeah.
the confidence is completely different.
Mm,
It's like the drama attached to having a baby goes like way down, and it's because you've already done it,
yeah.
you
The
know?
drama of that goes down, but then like the other toddler, if it's a toddler that you have at the time, which we both did, yeah, which we both did at the
We did,
time
yeah.
as well, is they keep you humble. They're like, hey, you got that confidence, but I'm gonna make sure it stays. Because the activity of the toddler is what I mean. I don't know if you experience that, but I am right now.
Yeah, it's exhausting,
Yeah.
we've got, a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old running around right now, and, like, it is exhausting,
Yeah.
and, the 11-year-old's going through 11-year-oldness. Don't know what's happening there, but, just like a lot of, just trying to figure out their identity and trying to figure out like what's going on. And
Yeah.
the 6-year-old is like, do I really want to read right now? And it's like, yes, you do, because you're in the first grade. So figure it out. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of like resistance and conflict, but then also a lot of exuberance and joy. And it's like what I love is the 2-year-old, honestly. Like the 2-year-old stage is so friggin' fun because everything's big. Like
Mm,
everything's big. It's like, I'm big happy right now, and then I'm big super mad right now, and then I'm big sad right now, and then I'm big happy again, and like they're all over the friggin' map. But it's so exciting to be there and witness it and be a part of it. Like as they get older, they start to kind of normalize a little bit and go within and go to
yeah.
internal. And then it's like, oh, I miss the days when you just sort of fully expressed what you thought and how you felt and had that vulnerability, and you didn't have to put on such a show.
Yeah. No, totally.
But yeah.
Aw. When the reason I was asking that question too is for me, I'm noticing that when it comes to like I have a list of with all, I have a few different masterminds I'm in each week, excuse me, for accountability and such. And I'm noticing that what I'm asking of myself to do versus the time and then also the reality of the flow is very much flow with having younger kids, or I mean at any age really, there's definitely going to be a certain demand
You
of flow
have to
that's
have
needed.
flow, man. Like, geez, like
Yeah.
the school system alone is going to make sure you have some flow. It's like, hey, we changed this, we're doing that. Like, don't forget that silly T-shirt that they have to wear, and it's like, oh, gee, though, I just want to get my stuff done. And
Yeah.
I think especially when you're an entrepreneur, it really does kind of magnify because your performance, it basically is in the form of your paycheck, right? Like your
Mm-hmm.
ability to generate revenue. And so I think there's like a whole nother level when you're an entrepreneurial mom too,
Yeah.
of like the expectation is high. Um, one thing to play with is living and breathing that calendar.
What do you mean?
Um,
Tell me more.
so like I used to use a calendar as a way to like remind other people of their appointments.
Mm,
Um, I use it now as like, this is your reality, gal.
mm,
I've got a live event coming up this weekend in Dallas, and I'm so stoked about this event. I have so much to do, but I'm also like remarkably calm because I'm like, I know how many hours I have between now and then, and I know what I can get done in that amount of time.
mm,
And yeah, let's just do this and it'll be what it'll be. And it's like, did I have greater vision? Did I want to do like even more? Of course. Right. Like especially when you're a creative, right? You
yeah.
always want to do like next level, more creative, more newness. And so we tend to come up with like more things, more things, more things. And the calendar I find is like my ultimate sanity check. And I have everything in there, including like my commute time that's at the gym, time that's like with like date nights on there. Like even my hours sleeping are on there
Mm-hmm.
so that I am hyper realistic about how much time I have, even though
That's
I
awesome.
have the tendency to be unrealistic.
Yeah. Well, because like then like the realness of life and all the things happen even when you have that. And yeah, I have a similar kind of flow in my calendar. Currently, I took a lot of it out, which I should probably now start putting it back in. I just wanted to give myself grace and not see all the squares of times, the chunks that I was like not necessarily using for what it was. Um, but yeah, like it's just yeah, it's a dance.
Yeah.
It's totally a dance. So
And calendar discipline is really tricky too. Like I would say it's kind of the same thing as we said in the weekly review. Like lower the bar. Like just
yeah.
make sure that your appointments make it onto the calendar as a first step. And like what I would do before I adjust anything about what you are doing is maybe just start getting into the habit of changing the appointments to what you actually did.
Mm-hmm.
So, and maybe even as you're heading into that, it's like, I see that on the calendar, but I want to do this over here instead. Put this over here on the calendar and take the other thing off
Yeah.
so that at least you're starting to get into the habit of the calendar reflecting your reality, even if it's not your perfect reality, right? Because
That's
then
great.
the
Mhm.
next step would be to maybe enforce different realities.
Yeah. Next level.
Next
Definitely.
level,
Well,
exactly.
yeah. Well, so was there anything else you mentioned about the freebie having the weekly review process? Is there anything else you wanted to share with us about it, in order for us all to be able to maximize what it is that you're sharing with us, a gift?
Yeah, so it's not a checklist, it's not a planner. It is literally a step-by-step process. So keep that in mind when you go through it. It's not going to tell you what your priorities are, but what it is going to do is going to tell you how to choose your priorities. And I've got a little framework in there that I call my priority pyramid. That you can, I give the whole demonstration of exactly how to do everything, and then you can just do it yourself and follow along. And I would say, like, if there's people in your household that you can enroll to support you, do it,
Mm.
right? They want to see you successful and happy.
That is such a key. So, and by support, of course, it's either like them just knowing that you're doing it or they're helping you guard your time. So you
Yeah,
have
it's
that
like
time.
literally
Yeah.
buzz off for 15 minutes. Mom's busy.
Yeah. Go to the park, do something. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. That's so important. I think, we talk sometimes about having community, but we don't always talk about leveraging your in-home people, like your spouse, your significant other, or, a neighbor, a friend, whoever, to support you, even if it's, yeah, just giving you 15, 30 minutes to grab a Starbucks or whatever you can do, and have that time for yourself. So
Absolutely,
it's awesome.
absolutely.
Cool. So, with that being said, and kind of just to put a beautiful little bow on this conversation and just the possibilities of what this process can have for us. Kids are the best observers, and they observe things sometimes that we're, I don't know about you, but I'm sometimes shocked what they observe, what they start
Yeah,
to do.
it can be terrifying. That's true.
How has productivity, or just how has the way that you're showing up in general, how have you seen that be observed with them?
I see it the most with the 6-year-old.
Mm.
And he's so funny. He's like, well, like family stuff, things will get like crazy. They'll be bickering between siblings and all of that kind of stuff. And Alden will say, you know what? I think we need a calm down corner. And he's a great little coach. Like he'll
Yeah.
ask all these open-ended, empowering little questions of us as his parents. Like he's not afraid to ask us, and he will challenge the rest of the family to be like mindful and thoughtful. And actually we have a little ritual every time we leave the driveway together. We all drive together to our various destinations in the morning. And so we have this ritual of saying, who's ready to have an amazing day? And even the 2-year-old goes, me,
Aw.
right? Everybody in unison, me. And so I think there's a huge positive mindset that has taken hold, because when I work with people in productivity, it's not just about crushing the task list. I've done that. You've got to have fun too. And you've got to have growth, and you've
Yeah.
got to have a little bit of just space to tinker and to play. And there's more to life than grocery shopping and changing diapers, and that stuff is important too. And there's so much more contribution. I think getting super cray cray about it. um Part of why I do what I do, of having the business that I have, and choosing to coach and choosing to help coaches with the business side of coaching,
Yeah.
is because I think that we're suffering from an epidemic of loneliness. I really
Mm.
do. And I think that the higher levels of depression and anxiety and everything that we're experiencing, the mom community and the parent community, they're feeling it too. And there's this
Totally.
isolation that's happening.
Yeah.
And even though we're more connected than ever through social media, it's such a fleeting connection. It's not the same community-based connection that our parents had.
Yeah.
And so coaches are so powerful in that triangle, because I think the thing is that our dreams haven't gotten any smaller. Our ambitions haven't gotten any smaller. We just, our belief in our ability to figure things out, and our belief in ourselves to be able to change our circumstances for the better, I think has been strained. And
Mm.
so I think, getting back to like, how does it affect the family? This level of fulfillment, it's like everybody knows that's the mission. Like everybody knows in the family that it's about raising other people up and helping them see that, like, how badass and powerful they are.
Yeah.
And it's about being a supporter and a lifter upper and a connector. It's not about really anything else. And like, I can't think of anything that would integrate better into a family, you know?
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I mean, also too, by who you're being and that example that they're observing and creating their own thing, you're also impacting multiple generations. It truly is like this ripple effect of, yeah, ripple effect of awesomeness is what it is.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all we do around here.
So as you've become who you are, and you kind of reflecting back on who you used to be, especially back when you were kind of figuring out the flow of family life. And I mean, we're always in a sense figuring out the next level
We
of flow,
are.
but when you had the kiddos that were much younger, even especially when it was, Alden was like a newborn, and in those first few years, and now again, but when he was younger, what would you tell yourself back then, um as far as, yeah, what would you share with yourself as a mom back then? I'm going to re-say that because I'm like, what did I just ask? I'm trying to not look at the question. And it's like, I kind of have to. So if you could go back in time and send a message to your past self, right when you're in the midst of figuring out again all the things that flow, that honored your needs and also like your families and your purpose, your professional life, all the things together, what would you share with that mom as she was trying to do all that?
You got this. OMG, you got this. No one cares what your hair looks like. No one cares whether you have a manicure or you don't have a manicure. Nobody cares if you are checking your email 90 times a day, right? Like they don't see that stuff, and that's not going to be what is fulfilling about any of this, right? Figuring it out is not necessarily working harder, making up for the fact that you're a mom. And other people's opinions don't count. They really don't count. You get to show up to this thing and you got this, you got this, you got this.
I love it. And you do got this. And we got this.
We got
Yeah.
this.
When you said that, I'm like, yes. Like I was trying not to interrupt. I just wanted to be like, yes, queen. No, because we do. And it's so easy for life to get ahead of us. And business things come up, meetings, and like you have a child running without a diaper or whatever's going on in your life. And just figuring out like the things and that you do have it at the end of the day. So awesome. Amanda, I so appreciate your time and joining us, especially having a live event this weekend and sharing time with us. And also again, too, for the freebie, I'm really excited to get that shared out. And I know it's made a difference for me doing that and just what I've learned from you as my coach. So thank you so much for being on.
It was such a pleasure. And, you know, if there's one woman beyond us that had this conversation kind of tweak something in her, then that was so completely worth every single second.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they will. Say the last part again.
You got this.
Yeah, you've got this. And so you mentioned where the freebie was, but just to kind of wrap up too, what is the best way if they want to wrap and connect further with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, the best way is to go to amandakaufman.net and go ahead and get that freebie, you know, by going to amandakaufman.net/morethanAparent. And, you know, that way you can join my list. And of course, if you don't want to get emails, you can unsubscribe anytime. I'll be super offended, but apart from that, you will be safe. And if you want to talk to me very specifically about your performance and productivity and really juggling it all, or you know someone who should have a conversation like that, you can just go to amandakaufman.net and you can find out about how to work with me and request a complimentary session.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for your time. Thanks for listening to this episode of More Than a Parent. To be your more, live your and.
Continue the conversation and connect at facebook.com/groups/more than a parent.